Hi there and welcome to my channel. My name is Rainer. This is Rainier Books, where I talk about books written in English or translated into this language. And it is Sunday today, Sunday, December the 4th. And usually I do a wrap-up on Sundays, but I won't do it today. I might do it tomorrow or on Tuesday. Today I want to give you a single review. But first, about the weather. It's 4 degrees minus Celsius outside of my window. That is in Fahrenheit. And I have about 1 hour and 20 minutes of sunlight to go on the outside. So I want to take a walk. But before I want to take a walk, I want to do this video because I don't like to film in the evening when it's so dark and everything gets so yellowish. So let's do it now. Let's speak about a single review of the National Book Award winner of 2021, Jason Mott. Hell of a book. Let's get started with this. I didn't know the name Jason Mott when he was longlisted for the National Book Award earlier this year. I haven't heard about him before. My apologies. But then he got shortlisted and then he won. And then I saw this amazing video of Russell from the Ink and Paper blog, which I will link down below, together with Hunter, who is doing Bookstagram on Shelf by Shelf. And they had so much good to say about this novel that I wanted to have it. So the day after Jason won the National Book Award on Thursday, that was a Thursday, I went directly to the bookstore Hedengrens in Stockholm. This is a big bookshop in the part of Östermalm, where they sell books quite high price, quite expensive, but they have a very good selection of English books there. So I bought it and I read the 2 first chapters and I was enthusiastic about it. I wanted to read it all and I wanted to know this hell of a book and to read it as soon as possible. So for today, I just tried to look something up about the author, about Jason Mott. He is apparently he is from a small town with 700 people only living there called Bolton in North Carolina. And he has also studied in his home state. He went to a beautiful community college called Cape Fear Community College. Reminds me of the movie, of course, in Wilmington. And then at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, or in Wilmington, where he sort of did a bachelor of bachelor in the fine arts in fiction and a master in the fine arts in poetry. And it was quite difficult to find out how old the guy is, but I found a review from like 7 years ago, and then he was 36, so 36 plus 7 should be 43 years old. Jason, if that's not correct, please drop me a comment down below and correct me. In 2018-2019, Jason Mott was an assistant visiting professor at the University of North Carolina in Wilmington for creative writing. He has published 2 poetry collections in 2009. The first, his debut, We Call This Thing Between Us Love, and in 2011, a second poetry collection called ... Hide Behind Me ... His first novel, The Returned, came in March 2014. And this is about the 8-year-old son, Jacob, of Harold and Lucille Hargrave, who was 8 years old, and he died tragically in an accident, I think, in 1966. In their old age, they settled comfortably into life without him, until one day, Jacob mysteriously reappears at the front porch of their house, flesh and blood, still 8 years old. More and more dead people, relatives, not only in the United States, but all over the world, appear at the front steps of their loved ones' houses years after they have died. This is The Returned. The Returned was also put into a TV show produced by Brad Pitt's production company Plan B, and it aired on ABC and got 2 seasons there on ABC. I haven't seen it under the title Resurrection. As a prequel to The Returned, Mott wrote also a short story called The First, the year before The Returned appeared on the market. His next novel was The Wonder of All Things, published in September 2014. On an ordinary day at an air show like that in any small town across the country, a plane crashes into a crowd of spectators. After the dust clears, a 13-year-old girl named Ava is found huddled beneath a pocket of rubble with her best friend Wash. He's injured and bleeding, and when Ava places her hands over him, his wounds disappear. That is the focus point, that's the starting point of that novel called The Wonder of All Things. And The Wonder of All Things is also meant to be a movie. The director Cheryl Dunye was nominated, was announced to make a film out of it in 2018, but the film hasn't materialized yet. So it might appear, it might not appear. Sometimes these projects start and they are not finished. You never know. The third novel by Jason Mott came in 2018. It was called The Crossing. This is a novel about two twins, Virginia and Tommy, who are 17 years old and face a lot of threats, a lot of danger to their lives. But most of all, they have to navigate through a very threatening pandemic. That is The Crossing in May 2018. And then 3 years later, hell of a book came on the market. So what is this novel about? That's what the author is always asked. I think this is a very fascinating novel, one of the most fascinating novels I read this year because the style of narrative is different. It reminds me of a Shakespeare play that I read many, many decades ago, and I haven't prepared for that one. So please comment down below which Shakespeare play I'm referring to, because this I heard once a lecture about a play within a play. This is a novel about a novel. No, this is an author has written a novel about an author. An author has written a novel called Hell of a Book about an author who has written a novel called Hell of a Book. So this is very fascinating, I think, because there are so many layers here. Hell of a Book is written by, in the fictional story that we're talking about, Hell of a Book is written by a man, a black American author, probably also from North Carolina, who is on a book tour across the United States. So we have this thing, the book tour, which is, I think, one of the topics, which you could name one of the topics of this book. It's about agents, it's about journalists, first of all, journalists, and everywhere the author, who has no name, appears, he's always asked, what is your book about? And that's also the first question that we often deal with here on BookTube, that we say, this book is about blah, 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 blah. So the author is asked, what is your book about? And sometimes he gives good answers, sometimes he gives bad answers. He is living in hotels and chain hotels. He's going to give a great interview in Denver, Colorado, I think, at some point. And that's the life of an author. But it's also, in the second narrative in this book, we have the story of a little boy, a little black boy whose skin is so dark that the other black kids who bully him on the school bus have called him Suit. And Suit, who is called Suit by the narrator in this book, then when it goes on, Suit has a father called William. And William is very... that's also what I learned about this, about being black, because I am white, I have privileges in the world, and we have to understand how the situation is for people of color. I didn't know that, and blame me for that, but I didn't know it. But by reading books like this, Hell of a Book, I'm learning, and I'm getting more sensitive to whatever I say, to whatever other people say, and to whatever other people do. And that's one of the great achievements by this novel. By novels like this, they educate us. And Hell of a Book is also a book about education, educating the white, still majority in the United States about what it is like. I love to listen to BBC Hard Talk with Stephen Sacker. Highly recommended. Not every episode is interesting, but there was one episode with a Republican politician in the US, and they were talking about the critical race theory. And Stephen Sacker, the British journalist, asked the Republican politician, do you agree that in your country there is systemic racism? And no, that's not true. No, it's not true. It's a lie. You know that when When I grew up, there's this funny thing about the talk that white children, or even black children, even brown children, probably, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, we get sort of sexually not educated, but we're told what happens, how the babies really come into life, and that's called the talk in many countries. But here, there's also a talk where William, the father, Suit's father, is giving his son the talk. And I want to read a part from this talk. William could see what was happening to his son. The boy's smile faded a little more each day that he came home from school. It wasn't the history lessons that were to blame, though they were difficult and intense. History still was always one of those things that could be partially compressed, pushed down into the recesses of logic, barred from feelings. No, it wasn't the history, but the current events that were slowly weighing on his son. Each day there was a new news report about someone who looked like him being shot and killed. Each day his son saw someone arrested, locked into prison. Each day the tide of bad things swelled up a little more around him, clutching at his lungs, threatening to pull him under. Each day William wanted to talk to his son about it. Each day he wanted to sit down with the boy and tell him, this is how the world is. And then with that modest introduction, he would start into the reality of his son's life. He would talk about his son's skin color and what it meant. He would talk about all of the people who had come before and looked like him and all of the things that had happened to him. He would talk about how the rules were different. He would talk about reality instead of the fiction that had been sold to him. He would say to his son, treat people as people, be colorblind, love openly, love everyone. And then, in the same breath, he would have to say to his son, you will be treated differently because of your skin. The rules are different for you. This is how you act. This is how you act when you meet the police. This is how you act growing up in the South. This is the reality of your world. William would one day have to say all of these things to his son and many, many more. And with each word, his son's heart would break. With each word, his son would be capable of a little less love, capable of a little less imagination, capable of a little less life. It was the bonsai of a child, his own child. There are many parts in this book that are so... There are quite many parts in this book that are so emotional and so well written and thought that give us an understanding how the situation, how the life is for black people in the United States and elsewhere around the world outside of Africa. This has really gripped me a lot. And there's this author who is traveling around the United States, is alternated with Suit and the story of his father William and Suit. And suddenly the black boy, the Suit boy, the boy who's called Suit, appears also to the author. He sits somewhere in a car, he shows up at a press conference, he might be in an audience, in a bookshop or somewhere, and talk to and ask questions, and he's talking to that boy. And that's also something that I think, I haven't read the other books by Jason Mott, but which seems to be recurring to his novels, is that the supernatural plays a role in Jason Mott's novels. And also the author of Hell of a Book, I mean not Jason Mott, but the author of Hell of a Book, inside the book Hell of a Book, has an obsession with the American actor Nicolas Cage. And also Nicolas Cage, I think, appears at least once in that book as to the author of Hell of a Book inside the novel Hell of a Book. It's also something that Jason Mott is sharing with the non-named author of Hell of a Book inside the novel Hell of a Book. Stop saying that now, I promise. So, because Jason Mott is also a fan of Nicolas Cage, I have seen that on his Twitter feed, that he sort of, every year, I think he makes some kind of Nicolas Cage night where he watches, or something like that. He watches several movies by Nicolas Cage, and he loves the actor. So Nicolas Cage is appearing here as well. There is a very sharp twist to that book in the end. The last 40 pages are really blowing your mind off. It's a very beautiful story about an author who's always asked. That's the author of Hell of a Book inside the novel. I have to say that because it's so kind of tempting to say the author of Hell of a Book, and then it's not Jason Mott but the author of the novel, you know. And there is, inside the book, there is the agent, the author is slowly losing his ground on which he's standing. I think this is a black author, black African-American author, who hasn't talked so much about it. This guy hasn't thought so much, this author hasn't thought so much in his career until now about using his platform as an author to write about black issues, to write about black topics, to write about Black Lives Matter. But he sort of gets, all the time, he gets questions in press conferences, on readings, when he's appearing somewhere with his book about a black boy being shot somewhere by the police, shot to death, and it's never revealed if there are several layers of time inside that novel, so that the killed boy could be actually sued. You never know that for 100%. It could be not. It's not a spoiler. Mott is playing with this and is playing with our minds with this, but he has constructed a hell of a book. And I love this, also this sort of narrative that gives us an author who has written a novel by the same title that the novel actually is bearing on its, let me say that, beautiful cover. And I don't say that only because I love yellow as probably my favorite color. Abi Diarra, I haven't read her novel yet, The Girl with a Louding Voice. Let me quote her blurb here. What a powerful, timely, and provocative novel. Mott's ability to take on deeply important themes with both poignancy and humor makes for an extraordinary emotional roller coaster of a read. And I tore through this profoundly moving novel in a day, but have been thinking about it ever since. Thank you, Jason Mott, for sharing this story with the world. And Charles Yu, last year's winner of the National Book Award with his novel Interior Chinatown, he says, hell of a book, more than lives up to its title. Playful, searching, raw, and necessary. This writing, this voice, this novel twisted me up and turned me inside out, dazzled me, surprised me, and moved me. This is good for a book club, if you have a book club. If you have a book club on the internet, on a local book club, this is a great read for a book club, I think. This is necessary reading. It's so much fantasy. I mean, fantasy in a way of the narrative mind, the mind of the author who creates this amazing story to us. It's also a very political novel, which is very timely. And unfortunately, it is timely because we should get rid of this shootings of black people, this horrible treatment, this systemic racism in our societies, and if it's the United States or if it's other countries, it's in Canada, it's elsewhere. It's a cancer in our lives that we sort of judge people and diminish people because of the color of their skin, because of their religion, because of their sexual identity and other things. This should be not 21st century, right? So, hell of a book. I would love to read from the finish of the novel, another passage, but I won't do this because I think I would give too much away from what's happening here. Read it. Go to your local bookshop. Buy hell of a book. Go to your library and put yourself in line to borrowing this book. And then tell me everything in the comments down below if you have read it. I want to read more of Jason Mott, definitely. And I think I will start with a Returned. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching this. Now I have to walk outside to do a little beautiful walk. Stay safe. Omicron is out there. Stay safe and bye-bye.